One of the most amazing things in the conventions of modern gaming to me is that we got to convince ourselves that the people that loot dungeons, that kill sentient, highly evolved beings to take their gold, are the heroes. We are the heroes and we do all that stuff. Well, maybe Dragonscales, the game that I'm reviewing today, is a revisionist take on that, because in this game, the characters are villains. We're told from beginning to end the players are controlling villains. And what do these villains do? Exactly the same things that in other games the heroes do. The villains, yes, are represented by the kind of monstrous figure that in other games you would identify as villains. Rarely do heroes have two heads or one big eye and so many tentacles like that. However, what they do is they're gonna try to kill a three-headed dragon, maybe the last of its species, maybe a marvel of nature. They're gonna try to kill the dragon to chop off all three heads and to grab as much treasure as they can in the process. Again, exactly what heroes do. So maybe that's the revisionist thing. Heroism and being a villain in fantasy games is all relative. What do I know? I'll leave it to you to ponder on this momentous element of fantasy gaming and the meaning of life, really. That's what we're talking about. As for the game itself, it is at its core a dice game. It is played around the board that you see here. You have here a dice display. Players will roll dice and then they will place their dice here in a certain way that we will see, and then depending on where their dice are, they will get to activate the effects here. That also means that you need to have somebody that sits exactly where I'm sitting right now, right in front of it, and the person will need to kind of be the person that helps the game moving along, a little bit of a game master, because people sitting around the table, on the other side of the table, they simply won't be able to read the small text that you see there. We have an area where we keep treasure cards that we want to loot, and danger cards representing the bad stuff that the dragon is trying to do to us, frankly, in complete self-defense. Here we have the area where our villains start, and we have an area with three piles of cubes. These cubes represent the life points of the dragons. Each time that you hit the dragon, you take one of these cubes here from one of the heads. You can take it in any combination. Actually, at the end of the game, those will be worth victory points. And if all three heads are slaughtered, then the game is over. Here we have a path that leads out of the lair of the dragon. The characters can move following the path that you see here. They can collect the rewards of the space they land on, and when a villain exits the board, also the game is over. And at that point, you collect victory points that will come from a variety of sources, treasures, and other things. At the point, the player with the most victory points is the winner of the game. Now, more in detail. Each player, again, has one of these miniatures. Each player also has a matching deck of villain cards. So these would be the cards for this lady here. And these cards will allow you to do different things. It's interesting that each character has a unique deck, and so these monsters play in different way. This monster here is sort of like the blue deck in Magic the Gathering, always messing up with what other people are doing. Other are just more straightforward, lethal characters. When you play a villain card from your hand, you simply do what it says. Some effects have a cost here that needs to be paid in Dragonstones. This is a resource that you will collect throughout the game. It's worth very little at the end of the game, so you will want to spend as much of it as possible. So each player has a set of cards. Each player also has a set of dice. And then we have a screen. So at the beginning of the game, you take your screen. Suppose that this is the character we're playing, and you hide your stuff behind the screen. Here, in particular, this way, you can take the cards that are in your hand and you can keep them face up and look at them easily. People are not looking at them, and also you will hide other resources there. In the standard game, behind the screen is also where you roll your dice. You can choose to roll them publicly. I think it's fine. It's not that I don't trust my fellow gamers, rather just I'm afraid of people making mistakes. Actually, I think that there is a higher degree of agency and strategy if you see what other people are rolling as you're rolling your dice. The idea is you roll the dice, then you have 2 rerolls in which you can reroll any and all of your dice, with the exception of the dice that show the symbol here. So for example, I roll that, and these I cannot reroll. I like these and I keep them, and then I decide to reroll these ones. Oh no, that one, you didn't see that right. That actually landed that way. I'm gonna save it, and then this at the end represents my dice. Everybody can do it secretly, and then you all reveal the dice that you had. But again, that kind of like creates basically a lot of randomness. I prefer to have a sense of what my fellow players are trying to do, and they know what I'm trying to do, and just you budget that as part of your decisions. So if you follow my suggestion, which is also considered the optional rule in the game, then you roll publicly. Then it's time for everybody to place their dice on this section of the board here. We go in player turn order, that is very important. And then basically you will have to place all of your dice on the board. And suppose that this is the first player, and then simply you go from the top, and everybody places all dice that have that symbol, say all shields. This player doesn't have anything, and you're done, then another player places one there. You're gonna try to place them leftmost, in the leftmost open space. With one exception, if you have more than the player before you or the players before you, then you slide them down by one space and you place yourself there. This is interesting because that shows you why turn order matters, because in order to get to the other side, to jump to the other side, you need to have more. Basically, turn order breaks ties. Also, we have the symbol here, which is a wild. It can represent any other symbol, but only in combination with other symbols. So suppose now third player in player order is going, the third player will need, and decides to use the wild for that, will need to place the dice there. Basically, the player beats that one that only has one, but not that one that has 2 there. It would take 3, a player with 3 now would jump all the way there and push the other dice down. The number of boxes that are active in a game in each row is number of players minus 1. So if everybody tries to put dice on the same round, on the same line, 1 will be pushed out. With the exception of the second line, which is Dragon Rage. That is the bad stuff that the dragon wants to do to you. There is always room for everybody there. And suppose that now we repeat the procedure, and this time is like this, and then like this, and then like this, and whatever else. So we continue like this until we fill up. Well, we not necessarily fill up all of the display, but we definitely place all our dice. At that point, we resolve the game effects, and this is the heart of the game, truly. We resolve all of the game effects starting from the top line and reading each row from left to right, and then going down until we have resolved everything. And the best effects are the ones on the left side, and this is why it's important to try to get as leftmost as you possibly can. Now, I'll empty just to show you what happens. For example, if you're here, you can heal 3 wounds that you may have had before. Yes, each character has a number of hit points, so when you take a wound, you take a cube, a wound cube, to represent that. And this game has direct, total, absolute, unmitigated player elimination. If you have as many wounds as your life points or more, you're out of the game. You may still win if it's late in the game and you score so many points that no one can catch up, but it's still unpleasant. So here, if you your dice are here, you can heal 3 wounds or become protected. You take a special token that will protect you from all damage. And from theft. Other players can also try to steal your stuff. And as you can see, you simply heal a different amount of wounds. When you're here, that simply indicates Well, the players that are to the left have attracted the attention of the dragon more. To solve that line, you draw a card and you resolve it from top to bottom. The bottom part, you only resolve it if at least one of the heads of the dragon has been completely slaughtered, otherwise you only look at the top two things. As you can see, you apply the result in the one column to player 1, then 2, then 3, and so on and so forth. So you will lose some life, usually. It may also be actually that you get to, you pull off a scale of the dragon as the dragon was biting your head. So actually sometimes you do gain some stuff. And then you resolve the effect that is indicated there. Simply do what it says, and again, the bottom effect only if the dragon has lost his heads, one of the heads. Here, you draw Villainy Cards and keep one, and also steal a Dragonscale. Basically, these are Villainy Cards from your own deck. Draw Treasure Cards that work actually similarly to the Villainy Cards, because they also have effects that may activate whenever the card effects says you can use it, then you can play it and do what it says. However, if you don't use a card for its effect, then you score that many victory points at the end of the game, which is pretty important because you may have all the nicest effects, but you don't have enough victory points, you still lose the game. Attack! This is when we attack the dragon. We get, depending on when we are or where you are, you get to roll a number of attack dice. They are these dice here. They have two sides showing swords, one side with a dragon eye, and then the rest is blank. You roll the number of dice indicated there, and then, like in the main phase, you can choose to roll and re-roll as up to roll up to 3 times, or if you say re-roll up to 2 times, so up to 3 rolls total. Again, those cannot be re-rolled. And suppose that after all the re-rolls is the situation, then we apply hits. Basically, each symbol gives 0.5 ones to the opponent rounded up. So 2 of these symbols will give me 1 point of damage when I'm attacking the dragon. 3 of these symbols will give 2 points of damage to the dragon. This will be 1 point of damage. This will be 2. This will still be 2. Again, 0.5 rounded up, simultaneously inflicted to the dragon and to ourselves. Next, we move. And sometimes players that have dice on this line here will get to move. On the track that I showed you earlier, you can move depending on where you are using the movement die that will allow you to move faster. Otherwise, movement die +1, movement die, only 1 space, don't move but take a Dragonscale, which again, remember, you can use to activate effects. And when you move along this track here that I showed you earlier, and that will give you different benefits depending on where you land. Some can be very, very sweet, it can be Dragonscales, healing, taking treasure, etc, 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 and you move following that mystical, magical line there. When somebody exits, then the game is over, as I said, and then you count victory points coming from, well, a pretty substantial variety of sources. The back of the book is a very effective player rate for that, because we have victory points. Each dragon wound that you inflicted, so a cube that you collected, is a victory point. It takes 2 scales to generate a victory point. Victory points for each villainy card that you still have in hand, that you haven't used. Treasure cards that you have not used. Again, that this time is not a fixed amount, but is written on the card. You lose points for each wound that you have. And next, well, it's easier if you read it than if you really explain it to you. I don't know why I struggle to explain it, but basically, for each color, for each head, the player that did the most damage, and then the second player scored these points here. Finally, players receive different bonuses and penalties based on how the game ended, because remember, it may end in 2 ways. These are the penalties and bonuses if the game ends because the dragon was slain, and these are the penalties that apply or the bonuses that apply if the game was ended because somebody escaped. You can read it, and I think you'll get a good sense of how this works. Play with the total amount of victory points, wins the game, and is the most villainous villain of the fantasy world of Dragonscales. So Dragonscales, I personally like it. I like the interactions. I like the choices that you have that come from, of course, the dice, trying to figure out what everybody else is doing. Pushing your luck. I like push your luck dice games because maybe it's because of my background as a war gamer. I don't mind the degree of luck that I know actually bothers other people. And sometimes you get stuck and you don't do much, and sometimes you have a shock of good luck, and other times you're doing well because of your strategy paying off, and of course that is the most satisfying. I like it. I like the production. I like the general ideas. I like the different things and all the different objectives that you can try to pursue, but you can. That's the beauty of it. There are always more things that you want to do, that you can possibly do, but that to me is usually a hallmark of a good design, because it is a design that precisely because of this presents us with interesting decisions to make, with interesting dilemmas, with material to analyze. And that's what fun hobby gaming is about. It's not about just going along for the ride, but actually making significant decisions and being engaged with what happens. I like the flow, I like the decisions. I even like, or say I'm okay with, direct player elimination, which I'm usually totally not okay with. But here it's done in a way that is not insta-death. I guess I just would take a big conspiracy to take out a player that really is careful and cares about their health, and they're seeing the doctor, brushing teeth, flossing, taking the vitamins and all that. Metaphorically is every time that you get hit, don't let that not bother you, but do something about it. Maybe spend some resources buying protection or healing. The times that players have been eliminated in my experience is because they neglected the healing element, and then, well, they were kind of asking for it, so maybe we just help them and give them the final push with some mean card effect, which by itself, again, would not, as far as I can tell, be enough to destroy a player. So I'm okay with player elimination because in truth, quote unquote, it shouldn't be there. It should be clear that the design is like, make sure that you don't put yourself in the situation. Or in any case, you have ample chances of avoiding death, and to me that's enough. In fact, I see it more as a game that presents you the problem of avoiding death rather than really facing the perspective of player elimination if you don't care enough. So I even like that, which is very rare. But I enjoy the game. The interactions, the dynamics. You do need somebody who's sort of like the game master sitting right in front of that display as I showed you, that keeps the game going. Otherwise, the game will bog down. People, where are we? Who's doing what? Wait a second. And then people lose interest. I enjoyed it, but I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that this game has proven controversial in my group. First, we played it, and pretty much I was the only person that wanted to play it again right away. Everybody else went to another game, and then we have new players. And of these new players, we went from like, oh my goodness, where can I buy a copy? I have to buy a copy for me and give one to my friends. This is amazing. To, oh, I understand why those people didn't want to play a second game. I don't know. I can only share my opinions that I like the game. The people that didn't like it, I asked them, and they said that there was too much randomness for them. The gameplay felt too much all over the place. It didn't feel like the various elements congealed together. It's not my opinion, but when a game is controversial in my group, I think that is just fair that I give you my perspective within the context of a larger community of committed hobbyists that don't go out making video reviews, but they're pretty darn smart and they know a lot about games, and I respect their opinion. So I'm also including that perspective there. Because of the reaction that I saw, I would say this is a game that I enjoyed it. It doesn't seem to be a universal crowd pleaser, which I would not have necessarily thought if I played the game solo, I guess, or if everybody had enjoyed it. In any case, my perspective is so positive that I could not imagine a hobby gamer wouldn't like it, but then We're all different, and that is also part of the fun. Dragonscale has a spectacular production, mechanics that I find really strong. Asymmetrical gameplay, didn't mention that one, but I really like the replay value that comes from playing with different characters. They really operate differently. Play elimination in one of the few ways in which it has been implemented that I'm okay with, but again, somehow all of these elements that I enjoy very much did not convince everybody. Dragonscales, push your luck, and dice placement game with a lot of interesting effects and unique characters. I like it, but somehow not everybody seems to agree with me.